This video is going to look at the structure of Australia's Commonwealth Parliament. The word Commonwealth is often interchanged with federal parliament, so we're going to be looking essentially at Australia's central government, which is located in Canberra. So for over 100 years now, we've actually been a federation as opposed to a British colony. This was put into law on the 1st of January 1901, where the British Parliament passed the Commonwealth of Australia Constitution Act, which united the 6 previously separate colonies, which became states, to form one nation with a federal system of government. And this is based on the Westminster parliamentary system, which is one of the concepts we looked at in Lesson 1. So looking a little bit closer now, we can see that the Commonwealth Parliament actually has 3 distinct parts. The first is the lower house, which is the House of Representatives. This figure, 150, is now changed to 151 as of the 2019 election to keep up to date with changes in Australia's population. So there are 151 members elected by the people to serve roughly a 3-year term, but that date might change depending on when the Prime Minister calls an election. The Senate has 76 members elected by the people to serve a 6-year term, so a slightly longer term than those in the House of Representatives. And finally, the Governor-General is elected by the government or the Prime Minister to serve a 5-year term. So these are 3 separate parts. Now, if we look at the lawmaking capabilities of Parliament, a bill might start in either the lower house or the upper house, but it needs to be passed by both of these institutions before it makes its way to the Governor-General for royal assent. So in keeping with the Westminster parliamentary system, the Constitution states that the Commonwealth Parliament must consist of 2 houses and the Crown, who is the Queen, represented by the Governor-General. The lower house of Commonwealth Parliament is called the House of Representatives, and the upper house is called the Senate. All laws made by the Parliament must be passed or approved by a majority of members in both houses of Parliament, and then also by the Crown, which really is just a formality. It's highly likely that if a bill passes through both houses of Parliament, then the Crown is going to give its approval irregardless. So we'll take a look at the House of Representatives first. And we see these 2 characters here, Scott Morrison and also Anthony Albanese, 2 leaders of the respective main political parties in Australia, Scott Morrison being leader of the Liberal Party and of course the current Prime Minister. Anthony Albanese is the current head of the Labor Party, the Federal Labor Party. So the lower house of Commonwealth Parliament consists of 151 members who are elected by eligible voters who live in one of 151 designated areas called electorates. So each one of these 151 members actually represents 151 of these areas, which we know as electorates. The electorates are determined in proportion to population size, meaning that areas like New South Wales have more elected members compared to areas like WA or Tasmania, which means that highly populated states have slightly more representation in the lower house of government. Now, the lower house is known as the People's House because it consists of members who represents the views, values and desires of people from all around the country. And the House of Representatives is known as the People's House as a result, like I mentioned. So the main role of the House of Representatives is to determine the government of the day. The way they do this is the political party that has a majority of members in the lower house, so at least 76 of 151 candidates, electorates, is the government of the day. This is currently the Liberal National Coalition. Liberal National Coalition, which of course is headed by Scott Morrison. The House of Representatives also discusses, debates and scrutinises proposals for changing and creating Commonwealth laws. So it's probably the role it is more known for, but of course it has this very important role in determining the government of the day. Move on to the Senate now. We've got 2 prominent senators Penny Wong, who is the leader of the Senate for the Labour Party, and also Sarah Hanson-Young, who is a relative newcomer to the Senate. She is a Green senator, but she is making headlines for some of her views on women's rights and asylum seeker rights. So the Senate is known as the Upper House, and it consists of 76 members, with 12 members from each of the 6 states and 2 members from each of the mainland territories. That is the ACT and the Northern Territory. Each get 2 senators. This way, the Senate can equally represent the views and interests of each state in Australia. So, regardless of population, each state is going to have equal representation in the Senate, so population size doesn't actually play a role. This is also why the Senate is sometimes known as the state's house. So the main role of the Senate really to represent the interests of the states. Given the Senate consists of an equal number of senators from each state, regardless of that state's population size, it can help prevent the Commonwealth Parliament from passing any laws that discriminate against any particular state. So in the House of Representatives, it may be possible to pass a law which is beneficial for New South Wales and Victoria only, but doesn't actually help any of the other states. So what the Upper House does is it provides some equal representation and will actually stop any particular discrimination between any of the states. Second role is to initiate, discuss and review new laws. Now a bill can start off in the Senate. There is no rule that says that bills can only be presented in the lower house. Some bills do originate in the Senate as well. Most new laws commence in the lower house. However, the Senate tends to act as a house of review as a result, debating and scrutinising proposals that have already gone through the House of Representatives. An example of this most recently are the industrial relations laws, which passed the lower house as the government has a majority. However, were not successful in passing the Senate as many of the minority parties, the crossbench in the Senate, did not agree with the reform changes. Finally, we have the Crown, represented here by Queen Elizabeth. We can see she's got her little puppy dogs there with her too. So the Crown is represented by the Governor-General in Australia, who is selected by the Prime Minister of the day and remains for a 5-year term. The main role of the Governor-General is to grant royal assent or give final approval on behalf of the Queen for a bill to become an Act of Parliament or a law. So this is the final stage in the law-making process. The other role of the Governor-General is to perform ceremonial duties such as representing Australia at national or international events and presenting awards to individuals who have made outstanding contributions to our society. Now, the Governor-General does actually also have powers to dissolve the term of Parliament, which really means to end the term of Parliament and call a new election if both houses fail to agree over the passing of a significant law. This power is used very rarely, only in extreme cases, and in fact, 1975 was the last time this power was used in the infamous case of the dismissal, which is something you'll actually look at in a bit more detail if you move on to Year 11, Politics and Law. So that ends our lesson on Australia's Commonwealth Parliament.